And now you have some tapes with the police on it. It comes from one incident. So these sex offenders, they stick me in Maryland's Medicaid program, which is similar to the VA. Let the patients die and steal the money. Medicaid managed care has some contractors in the mix, and this allows even elected officials to steal the money. They deny me access to this entire $15 billion system, and to show that they met their obligations, they allowed me to have contact with this lowly Dr. Anthony McCarthy. He also collects the observations, which a good doctor does as part of medical care, but this criminal, Anthony McCarthy, is not sharing the observations with me or using it for my medical care. He's sharing it with his fellow perps and perverts. So with Pervert Manger's pre-arranged scheme, when I started discussing the crime done to me, this doctor had already been told to call 911 and say that I was out of control. On the tape, it's clear that it's a doctor who's out of control. You can hear that his accent comes on strong when he goes berserk, and his speech becomes impossible to understand. The regular thing that you hear from these perps is that they want to ram their lies down my throat, force me to accept their lies. So they always say, listen to me. But for them, this has nothing to do with me hearing their side. I always hear their side and know what they said and incorporate what they said into what I say next. So they're the ones who don't want to acknowledge what I say. So the word listen for them means that I must accept their lies unchallenged. And they know that I have the right to record. So Manger told this doctor to call 911 and use the phrase out of control, because this will produce the most rapid response. But it also produces a massive response. So it's not just fast, it's huge. So once the first officers arrived, Pervert Manger's top officials, with an internal transmission not known to the 911 dispatcher, called off the rest of the police. What exposed this is that the secret message did not reach the sheriff's deputy who responded. Like most suburban counties, the appointed police chief and police department does all the police work. The elected sheriff and the deputies, though being equal to police in every way, are assigned to things like working in the jail and serving warrants. Around here, there is plenty of police. Mutual aid calls sometimes go to the sheriff's office for something like a canine unit, but otherwise only for an officer in distress type call. Well, actually, we do have an officer in distress. It's Pervert Tom Manger, who doesn't want to get locked up. The three police officers never acted as there was any danger for this really huge response, and for me apparently being out of control. They were in fact often turning their backs to me. In fact, they didn't even want to talk to me, because obviously they don't want to take my complaints down. Now, just like those three Fairfax County officers who put whiteout on the medical records, they already know that there is no legitimate basis for any police contact with me. And that's starting with the first police contact with me, when that nasty pervert Tom Manger did those crimes. Now, so they know, since there's no legitimate basis for any police contact with me, they know that it is they who are the criminals, just like their chief, Tom Manger. doing crimes of pervert Manger, who are doing his crime. Now, Manger's officers issued a no trespass order, and at the time told a huge lie that they were not allowed to work on what a huge lie that they were only allowed to work on what they were dispatched for. So they could not take my complaints about the crime occurring in 2013. And of course, so really, maybe it really wasn't a big lie from the cops to say that they were not allowed to take my complaints. Now, it's the wrong standard, but they were obviously told by the chain of command to not take my command. So they were obeying orders. And I guess that was because that's to cover up for Manger's own crimes. Not only did these people put me into Medicaid without my consent, let alone without my request even, my Medicaid is 100% Obamacare, 100% federal dollars, and with all the old and new laws and rights. Very clear federal criminal civil rights abuses. Because I was actually in a situation where I have an emergency medical condition. So it's not even the issue of blocking the school doors where someone could possibly argue that, okay, well, maybe next month you can get into the school. But here I needed medical care right away. Officer Timothy Serlo is heard on the tape saying, Hey buddy, you're not in any trouble. We know what he meant from the crime perspective, that I haven't done anything wrong. But I was horribly injured back in 2013. Then without medical care, it got progressively worse, as was the plan of Tom Manger and his fellow perverts. Then the injuries advanced much more after the latest crimes just a few months ago by Manger and the police. In just the last few months, the injuries started with the brain. They moved to the heart. They began to involve the heart as well. And in the last few months, the kidneys and other organs also suffered major damage. Now, we saw the correct standard. There was the sheriff's deputy John Lee, or John Lay, it's spelled L-E-A, or Leah, or I don't know how it's said. Anyway, so him being out of the loop, he acted with the proper standard. He was both cautious, but he was also listening to my reporting. And because he has a busy schedule, because his job really his assignment that day was serving warrants, and it's the day before Thanksgiving, so obviously he wants to wrap things up. And I had more than 100 pages of evidence, so that's not something he can just do on the roadside. So he gave me his business card and told me to call him, and that would have been the proper standard. So when you listen to the tapes, you can hear the tape, what happens in the doctor's office and what happens with the cops outside.